Thank you so much. It's my pleasure to have Maria O'Connor on stage to talk about ticketing. You're the managing director of Ticketmaster in Australia, New Zealand.
I am.
That's great. And yep, is the mic working for you?
I think so. Can you hear me?
Can everyone hear? Yep. Okay. And there's plenty of room up front. I see people in the back there, so there's lots of seats. Come and sit in front. So let's talk about it. What would you say are the most significant changes you've seen in the Australian, New Zealand ticketing business in your long career?
Obviously, the internet, everything going online, changed it from people having tickets sold to them,
right,
to them buying.
Yeah.
It's a huge mental shift. They actually complained when we couldn't sell them things they didn't want.
How do you mean?
Well, we used to sell them tickets behind poles and things they couldn't see.
I see.
And they didn't know until they got to the theater.
Right.
And now they know up front.
And they complain that they couldn't buy the ticket behind the pole?
And they go on social media and they tell everybody they don't like them.
It's interesting.
Yeah, so that's changed the whole psychology of going out as being the online, the advent of online.
Right, but I mean, in general, would you say it's made your job easier to be able to sell online, or not particularly? Doesn't have so much of an effect?
Well, if you can sell out a stadium in 7 minutes, it makes the promoter very happy.
Yeah.
It makes the venue very happy.
Right.
It makes the consumers very unhappy because they think something's gone wrong because tickets are all gone really quickly. So their assumption is something's gone wrong because they can't get one.
It's interesting. So, in other words, there's some downside to having such quick access.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So you spend your day dealing with the people who weren't satisfied because they couldn't get a ticket.
Wow.
Where in the olden days, you spent all day selling the ticket.
Right. And
So
it was a lot slower back then.
Yeah. So it's changed. So we used to have a contact center all day with people in it that cost a lot of money selling tickets. Now we have a contact center with a lot of people in it costing a lot of money dealing with customer contact, customer service issues.
Wow. So you employ many more customer service people now than in the past.
Yeah, no one buys tickets on the phone anymore. They're just ringing up to say, I didn't get them, I couldn't get through, my mobile phone or whatever. So it's just a total change, total shift.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. And you have a preference one way or the other, or it's just a new business model?
It's just a new business model.
Yeah.
I mean, and then we have to have social media content providers. We have to have people. So the skill set of the people has changed as well.
Right. Did that mean you had to give more training or something like that?
You have to hire different types of people. Right. You have to train them constantly. You have to be very aware of what you're. An innocent customer service agent will put something up on Twitter thinking they're doing the right thing.
Right.
And the artist will go absolutely berserk because they don't want that said.
Right. Well, that's not necessarily your responsibility, but it's something you have to deal with, right?
We have to deal with that.
Right.
So it's totally changed. The whole industry has changed.
Yeah.
Just because of technology.
Right. Well, that's what happens, right? Yeah. Are you guys very involved with the artists and the management in the tours in Australia and New Zealand?
Yeah, with some. We worked closely recently with Tim Mitchin on his latest tour, working with Verified Fan to stop scalpers or the secondary market brokers getting tickets. Mm-hmm. We've worked with Snow Patrol, do the same thing.
Sure.
We also work with managers and some agents with pricing the house to make sure that the artist is getting maximum yield, depending on what venue they're working in.
Right.
Sometimes we work with them to make sure they're going to the right venue that works for them, especially if they're overseas. Some of the venues,
right.
Obviously Australia is a big place.
Right.
A lot of different cities, especially on regional tours.
Right.
Yep, so yes, we do. We have a music services division that work with them.
Right, there's a couple of things I want to follow up on there. First of all, since the secondary market, scalpers are such a big issue, can you explain what Verified Fan is and how it helps try and stop that?
Yep, so Verified Fan is a Ticketmaster product that requests the fan or the patron to register that they want to buy tickets for a particular show. and then that database is matched against the logarithm that we have to see what kind of patron you are. If you've bought for that type of show before, what credit card's been used, and then if you are a bad actor, you won't get tickets. And then if you are deemed to be, you know, a fan or a real person, you're sent a code that allows you to buy tickets.
Oh, right. And how would you determine someone's a bad actor? I mean, from their behavior, you can just
if you're someone who's bought tickets over and over again, that you've been on sites that loads tickets up for scalping or selling tickets above, that you're someone that we don't want to deal with, then we kick you out so you can't get tickets.
Wow, that sounds pretty effective. That sounds good, yeah. So this sort of leads in naturally to the next question. So this kind of data analysis and social media in general, but let's stick with data analysis for a second, is really important to your business at this point.
Yeah, I mean, like everything, you know, not every show sells out. So it's really important that you take the risk out for the artist and you take the risk out for the venue, whoever you're working for. So if you can analyze your data and work and give them an idea of how many people are likely to buy and at what price, then you're taking the risk away.
Right.
So we do that for, you know, we sell a lot of theater shows, we sell a lot of sports tickets, we sell a lot of music. So it's really important that we can minimize the risk. Therefore, you're going to get more shows.
Right.
You're going to sell more tickets.
Right.
And you're going to reduce the marketing spend for the producer or the promoter.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense.
Which is the key.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. And you also mentioned that you help sometimes, you know, assess what's the right venue for some artists. How do you go about that?
Well, sometimes the venues, you know, I remember. I won't mention the promoter or the act, but an overseas promoter rang me. He says, you know, Maria, I can't understand it. I'm looking at these venues for like an A-list art, and even though the venues all look the same, the capacities are way out.
Right.
I says that's because half of them are ovals, which are AFL grounds, and the other half are rugbies, which are rectangles. So the ovals obviously have much bigger capacity on the arena.
Right.
He said, you know what? No one has mentioned that to me.
Wow.
I can get 20,000 more people in an oval than I can in a rectangle.
Right.
So just like simple things like that for someone who's overseas in North America or in Europe.
Right.
So, and also the pricing. You know, we know our market.
Right.
And Australia is not like it's not like London, and it's not like New York. And Australians are not like anybody else. You have to know what you're doing when you start pricing and when you start. So we try and give them local information to make sure they're going to the right venue for that type of show.
Right.
Or they'll just go to the beach.
Right.
That's, you know.
Because they're Australians, right? Of course.
The weather's nice. It's, you know, you go anywhere, right?
Right.
So it's, you know, you have to be very careful. That Australians can be quite cynical, and you don't want to do something that'll just go, you know what, we'll go somewhere else.
But as far as, I mean, that's very interesting to me. As far as ticketing goes, how would you compare the Australian market to, let's say, Britain or Europe or even possibly the United States?
Well, in North America, there's so many people.
Yes.
All trying to get the same thing.
Right.
So there's, and in Europe, same, a lot of people. There's only 25 million people in Australia, and we have huge venues. And so very few things sell out. So you have to be really careful how you price and what venues you put your act in. So there's no point, if you've got an act that will only draw 25 to 40,000 people, there's no point putting them in a stadium that holds 100,000 people or 80,000 people.
Right.
Just because it's good for you, the promoter, or it's good for you for a reason. So it's really important that you get it right. And the pricing's really important as well, because you have to also understand what else is happening in the market at that time. So, you know, we've recently put Harry Potter on sale. It's sold out for almost a year in advance. So you have to be aware of what other things are happening in a city.
Right.
what you may not necessarily know if you're in London or New York.
Right.
So the markets are really different. So
Right.
things that have gone really well in London and New York haven't worked in Australia for various reasons,
Right.
pricing, or they don't translate. So what's been really hot in one place just doesn't translate.
Right. That makes sense.
Does that make sense? I mean, people
Yeah.
just think, oh, well, it's similar. It's not.
Right. I want to ask you a really basic question. Truthfully, I don't know the answer to it, and I think that probably most of the people in the audience don't know the answer. How is the pricing determined? I mean, is that a negotiation between you and the management?
No, well, we don't set the price. So our contracts are with venues. So I guess the artist sets the price of what they on the tour, and then they do a deal with a venue, and we have a contract with a venue.
Right. But if you felt the pricing was inappropriate,
We would absolutely tell
right.
them.
Right.
Yeah.
So you have some input in that.
Absolutely.
Right,
Because
right.
the last thing you want to do is know that someone's going to make a mistake with their pricing.
Right. Right.
And you have to look at what else is on sale in the market, how the economy's tracking, what the value of the Australian dollar is at that time.
Right. Right.
I mean, there's a lot of things
A
happening.
lot of factors in
Yeah,
that.
there's a lot of
That's kind of
factors.
why I was asking, because
Yeah.
you know, it can be a variable. It's hard to say this is the price for tickets. It's no. There's so many variables.
I mean,
in
the
play.
cost of living in Australia is high
Right.
compared to other markets as well.
Right. Right. Let's see. You're one of the top executives in the business ticketing business in Australia.
Yep.
What advice would you give to someone trying to get into the business now, especially as a woman in the business? But first, let's just start with general advice.
I don't know. I fell into it by accident.
That sounds nice.
Yeah, I came out from Ireland in the 80s and went to work for the company was called Bass. I thought it was a brewery because Bass in Ireland was a brewery.
Wow.
And I don't know. I started at the bottom building events, and then I worked in box offices and did subscriptions and became a client manager, and so I've done everything. My advice would be get a good mentor in the industry. It's very hard because they're mostly all men in the industry, or
Right.
certainly in Australia.
Right.
They certainly are. And that you have to stand up for what you believe in. If you think something's not right, you have to actually say, that's not right.
Right.
And don't let them tell you that, yeah. You have to actually, and I have a reputation for always saying what I think. And people now ring me up because they know I'm going to tell them the truth.
Right.
And once you get a reputation for telling the truth, people will come to you for advice.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it is tough. It's a tough industry. I don't know
Yeah.
what it's like. In Australia, it's been very tough. And historically, it's been based on bullying.
Right.
I don't know. I assume it's the same in other markets. But it's a tough industry,
Right.
especially
Right.
the music side of the industry.
Yeah.
And it's not for the faint-hearted.
Right.
And
Right.
I'm pretty tough. I come from Belfast, and I can pretty much stand my ground.
Not so easy to push you around.
No, it's not easy to push me around.
Right.
But you have to stand up for what you believe in, and if you don't believe in it, don't do it.
Right.
That would be my advice.
Right. Right.
And luckily, Live Nation, Ticketmaster, the values are the same.
Right.
And we're told if it's not right, don't do it.
Yeah.
And that is right up to the top of the
That
top of the
makes
chain.
sense. That makes sense. Yeah.
The other thing is working for a company that supports all forms of diversity is a very easy place to work. So, and I can honestly say in the 35 odd years that I've worked in the company that has had many owners, this is the best time it's ever been since the
Wow.
Live Nation Ticketmaster merger.
Wow. Fantastic.
I'm saying that absolutely.
You're telling the truth now. You're
I
not
am
just
telling
saying
the
that.
truth. This has been the best it's ever been. The investment in technology, the investment in people, the investment in us as a group has been. You just can't measure it.
That's great.
And I think it's been shown in the culture and the growth of the company.
Right.
That's because
Right.
the people are invested in as well.
Right.
So we're
Right.
very lucky.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's fantastic. I want to ask you sort of another general question. I think it's probably, second nature to you, but for us outside of the ticketing industry, we really don't know. What percentage of the tickets that you sell are music related or music concerts versus sport and comedy and so many other tickets. Yeah, in Australia, in your market.
25%. So we're very lucky. So we're split evenly. Though it's growing because there's a lot of new festivals that have opened in Australia in the last 12 months. Live Nation have invested a lot in new festivals. And that way you sort of hedging your bets against, artists not touring or downturning certain. So we're very lucky. The marketplace is very buoyant at the minute. We never had a recession after the GFC, although there's been a lot of investment by government in infrastructure, in buildings, and every city's had new stadia built, investment in theaters, investment in infrastructure, and that has then fed festivals and roads, and everything's come with it. So that way you keep the economy going. I think the Australian government has realised that this is a way of keeping the economy going. It's really important. I'm also vice president of Live Performance Australia, which is the peak body of the industry. And so when you sit around the table with the producers and the promoters and the theatre owners and the arts centres, you can see that they are also being invested in. And it's really important that every sector of the industry is invested in, because you can't exist on your own.
Yeah, everyone needs to work together.
Every producer needs a theatre to play in. Every sports team needs a stadium.
Sure.
So they all have to coexist.
Right. And after music in your sale, is that the biggest? Is music the biggest chunk of the sales? Or
in terms of contribution to the economic growth, contemporary music is the biggest contributor.
Right. And in terms of ticketing, it's the biggest chunk, 25%, or sport is bigger?
That and commercial theatre.
Right. How big is commercial theatre?
Commercial theatres, they're equal.
Wow.
So
and
they're
sport?
pretty huge. Sport would be next, and then like family and things like that. So they're huge.
See, I would have guessed that sport would be bigger.
No.
Especially in Australia.
The trouble is they buy a lot of season tickets and then don't go.
Right. So that cuts down the tickets you have to sell.
Exactly.
Right. Well, that's quite interesting.